The sentence I can't take back when I told my mom, "I'm glad you can't have more kids. You suck as a parent." I swear I didn't mean for it to come out like that. I wasn't trying to be cruel, but the truth had been clawing at my throat for years. And that night I just stopped caring who it hurt. She stared at me like I'd struck her, and in a way, I had. I'm 24 now, but if you asked anyone who knows us, they'd probably say my mom and I have always had a difficult relationship. That's the polite way of saying she never really saw me as a person, just as a project that didn't turn out the way she wanted. She got pregnant at 19. My dad left before I was born, and for years she reminded me that I ruined her life. Not always in words, sometimes in the way she sighed when she looked at me, or how she'd tell her friends. I could have been something if I hadn't gotten stuck with a kid. I grew up learning how to apologize for existing. When I was 10, she met Michael, the man who would become my stepdad. He was quiet, older, financially stable, and for a brief moment I thought, finally, she'll stop being so angry. But she didn't. She just found new ways to express it. Michael couldn't have children of his own. Some medical issue. I never knew the details. And my mom used that like ammunition. She'd tell him, "You should have seen Alex as a baby. Perfect until he turned into this." Then she'd glance at me smirking as if I were supposed to laugh. He never defended me. He'd just sit there, sipping his beer, avoiding my eyes. By the time I turned 18, I was desperate to leave. But leaving doesn't erase the damage. It just changes the shape of it. I got my own apartment, found a job, and tried to forget her. But she never let me. Every few weeks, she'd call. Sometimes crying, sometimes angry, sometimes pretending to be concerned about me. Always finding a way to remind me that no matter how old I got, I'd never stop being a disappointment. Then, last year, everything changed. She called one evening, her voice trembling. She said, "The doctors say it's official. I can't have kids anymore." I didn't know what to say. She was 41. I didn't even know she'd been trying. She laughed bitterly. "They said my body's done. Can you believe that? I wanted to give Michael a child of his own. He deserves one. Not just you. Not just you." Something snapped inside me that night. I said, "Maybe it's for the best." She went quiet. Then she asked, "What's that supposed to mean?" And I told her the truth I'd been swallowing for a decade. "It means you suck as a parent, Mom. You treat me like garbage. You don't deserve another kid." There was silence, sharp, heavy, endless. Then she whispered, "You're a cruel little bastard, just like your father," and hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. But it never is it? A few days later, Michael called me. He said, "Do you know what you did to her? She's been crying for days. You should apologize." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because of how familiar it felt. Even after all these years, somehow I was the villain again. But then he said something that made me freeze. "She was pregnant, Alex. She just didn't tell you. She lost the baby last week." My whole world stopped. I couldn't breathe. Every word I'd said replayed in my head like a scream echoing through a canyon. I told her I was glad she couldn't have kids, and the entire time, she was grieving one. Michael didn't know I hadn't known. He just hung up after saying, "You should think about what kind of person that makes you." For days, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I just kept hearing her voice. "You're a cruel little bastard." And for once, I didn't have a comeback. I tried calling her. No answer. I texted, emailed, even went to her house. She didn't open the door. Through the window, I saw her sitting at the kitchen table staring at nothing. A glass of wine beside her. For the first time in my life, she looked small. I don't know how to explain what I felt. Guilt, yes, but also confusion. Because I hadn't known. She hadn't told me. She never told me anything. She'd spent years pushing me away, blaming me for her pain. How was I supposed to guess she'd been trying again, risking her health? Trying to do things right this time, and yet even if I hadn't known, I still said it. I said I was glad she couldn't have more kids, and there's no taking that back. After 2 weeks of silence, she finally texted me. Just one sentence, "You always get what you want, don't you?" I stared at that message for an hour. Then I deleted it. I don't know if she'll ever forgive me, or if I even deserve it, but I can't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, part of her anger wasn't just about the baby or my words. Maybe it was because, deep down, she knew I was right. That she was never really a mother. Not to me. That whatever she lost, she'd already broken long before that night. Still, sometimes I think about that baby, about how things could have been different. And then I wonder if my mom would have finally treated me like her son, or if that child would have just been my replacement. Either way, I guess we'll never know. Part E. The letter my mother never meant for me to read. It had been 3 months since I told my mom those words. 3 months since I'd watch her silhouette through that window. Still broken, unreachable. She didn't call. She didn't text again. But the silence wasn't peace. It was punishment. And I took it. I told myself I deserved it. Then one Friday afternoon, I got a call. It wasn't from her. It was from Michael. His voice was strained, to calm in the way people get when they're barely holding something together. He said, "Alex, she's in the hospital." The world blurred. All the air left my lungs. I don't even remember the drive there. Just the sound of my heartbeat hammering against the steering wheel. When I arrived, she was unconscious. Tubes, monitors, the sharp antiseptic sting in the air. Michael was sitting in a chair by the bed, looking 10 years older than the last time I saw him. She collapsed, he said. Liver failure. The drinking it caught up to her. He looked at me then, eyes wet, but not from grief, from exhaustion. I tried to stop her. After you two fought, she just couldn't stop. Said she lost everything that mattered. I swallowed hard. I wanted to argue, to tell him that wasn't my fault, that she'd been like that long before that night. But the words died in my throat. Maybe they were both true. She woke up 2 days later. Her first words weren't hello. They weren't I missed you. She whispered, you came. And then, after a long pause, why? I didn't know. Maybe guilt. Maybe love. Maybe both. I said, because you're my mom. She looked away, tears sliding down her temple. You shouldn't call me that, she said. You don't mean it. And that was the moment I realized she wasn't angry anymore. She was done. She got out of the hospital after 2 weeks. The doctors told her she had to quit drinking completely or her liver wouldn't last another year. She promised them she would. But I knew that promise didn't mean much. She'd been making promises her whole life. Still, I started visiting. Once a week, sometimes twice. I'd fix her groceries, clean her kitchen, listen to her ramble about Michael's long shifts or the neighbors' gossip. She never mentioned that night. Neither did I. We lived in the quiet space between apology and resentment. Then, one afternoon, I found it. A letter, tucked between old photos in her living room drawer. The envelope had my name on it, but it wasn't in her handwriting. It was my father's, the man I'd never met. I hesitated before opening it, but curiosity is a cruel thing. The letter was dated February 2000, the year I was born. Dear Alex, if you're reading this, I guess your mother decided to keep you away from me. I can't blame her. She thinks I'm a monster. Maybe I am, but I need you to know the truth, because Sunday, she's going to twist it. My hands started shaking. She told me she was pregnant and that it wasn't mine. But I knew she was lying. I'd been with her every day that month. The timing was impossible any other way. But when I tried to talk to her, she threatened to disappear. Said if I didn't leave, she'd tell everyone I'd forced her. I froze, forced her. I left because I thought she was serious. I thought I'd ruin her life. I didn't know she was going to raise you believing I abandoned you. I tried to find you once. She filed a restraining order. The words blurred through my tears. My chest felt like it was caving in. I don't know what she'll tell you about me, but just remember, the truth is never one person's story. If you ever want to find me, my name isn't Mark. It's David. And I never stopped hoping you'd come. I sat there for an hour staring at that letter until my mom came home. When she saw it on the table, her face went white. Where did you get that? She whispered. It was in your drawer, I said. Why did you hide it? She closed her eyes as if the question itself physically hurt her. Then she said quietly, because not all truths help people. I pushed. I asked if it was true, if she'd lied, if my father had really wanted me. She started shaking, tears spilling before words did. And when she finally spoke, it wasn't what I expected. I was scared, she said. I didn't know what to do. He loved me. Too much. When I told him I was pregnant, he wanted to get married right away. I panicked. She laughed, bitter and trembling. I'd just lost a scholarship. My parents stopped talking to me. I thought if I tied myself to him, I'd never escaped that light. I stared at her. You told everyone he left you. I know. You told me he didn't want me. I know. She screamed, voice breaking. I was 20. I was angry and terrified and alone. And every time I looked at you, I saw every mistake I'd ever made. Her breath hitched. And then you started looking like him. Something broke in me then. Something I didn't even realize was still holding on. For years, I'd carried this wound like proof of her cruelty. But in that moment, I saw what it really was. A woman who'd been drowning her whole life, clutching at anyone she could drag under with her. It didn't excuse her, but it explained her. After that night, I stopped hating her. Not because she deserved forgiveness, but because I didn't want to carry her mistakes anymore. I found David, my real father, a few months later. He lived 3 states away, remarried, quiet life, no more ghosts chasing him. When I met him, he cried before he even said hello. He showed me baby pictures of me that I didn't even know existed. Said he took them from a distance when my mom wouldn't let him close. Had kept them for 24 years. Now, sometimes I visit both of them separately. Mom is sober now, or at least she's trying. David sends her money quietly through me. He says she doesn't have to know. I think part of him still loves her even after everything. And maybe part of me does too. Because no matter what happened, no matter what we said to each other that night, we're both just trying to survive the people we used to be. Part E, the child she couldn't have, and the one she chose to lose. It's strange how quiet forgiveness can feel. You expect it to be loud, a big moment, an embrace, some cinematic music swelling in the background. But in reality, it's just silence. The kind that comes when you're too tired to hate anymore. That's what life became for me after finding my father. Quiet. I had both parents again, technically, but they existed in different universes. My mom and I spoke once a week. We talked about small things, the weather, her cat, a new show she liked, never the past. And for a while, that was enough. Until one night, I got a call from her neighbor. She said, "Your mom hasn't been seen in 2 days. Her car's in the driveway, but she won't answer the door." My stomach turned to ice. When I got there, the house was dark. I found her in the living room, lying on the floor beside a spilled wine bottle. Not dead, barely conscious. I called 911 and they rushed her to the hospital. Liver failure again. Worse this time. The doctor said she'd ignored every warning. She's not going to make it if she doesn't get a transplant, he said quietly. And even then, it's uncertain. I sat beside her bed that night, watching her breathe through the ventilator. I didn't cry, not because I didn't care, but because I'd run out of tears years ago. The next morning, Michael came. He looked like a ghost of himself, pale, trembling, still in his work clothes. "She didn't tell you, did she?" he asked. I frowned. "Tell me what?" He took a deep breath, sat down, and whispered, "She's been hiding something. About the baby she lost." My chest tightened. "What are you talking about?" He rubbed his face. "The baby wasn't mine." The words hit me like a brick. I thought I'd misheard, but then he looked at me. And there was something in his eyes, something terrified. "It was your father's," he said. Everything inside me stopped. My father's? David's? But how? "She reconnected with him," Michael said. "Last year, around the time she told you she couldn't have more kids. I didn't even know at first. I thought she was visiting an old friend. Then I found the letters, the photos, her diary." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and handed it to me. It was my mother's handwriting. "David came today. He still looks at me the same way. Like him worth saving." I told him about Alex, about everything. He cried. I did too. He said he forgives me, but I don't think I deserve it. Maybe this is my second chance. Below that, dated a month later, pregnant. I don't know how to tell Michael. I don't know if I should. But maybe this time I can do it right. I stared at that page until the ink started to blur from my tears. It wasn't just betrayal. It was something deeper. The realization that the woman I'd spent my life resenting had been trapped in the same cycle she created. She had tried to rebuild what she destroyed. And failed again. Michael swallowed hard. When she lost the baby, she changed. It wasn't just grief. It was guilt. She said she'd cursed every chance she ever had at love. He looked up at me. "She wanted to tell you. She wrote a letter for you before the transplant was even an option. It's in her nightstand." After she was stabilized, I went back to her house. The smell of her perfume still lingered, lavender and cigarettes. The house felt smaller than I remembered. In her nightstand, I found it. a letter in an unsealed envelope with my name written shakily across it. I sat on her bed and opened it. Alex, if you're reading this, I probably didn't get the chance to tell you everything. You were right that night. I was a terrible mother. I won't pretend otherwise. But I need you to understand. I never hated you. I hated myself, and you were just the only one who stayed close enough to see it. I wiped my eyes, forcing myself to keep reading. David and I found each other again. I thought it was fate giving me another chance. I thought if I could give him the family I stole, maybe it would fix what I broke between us. And between me and you. When I lost the baby, it felt like punishment, like the universe telling me I don't get second chances. I wanted to tell you the truth, but how could I? You already hated me enough. I didn't want to give you another reason. Then, near the bottom, one final line that made my heart stop. Please don't blame David. He never knew. This was my sin alone. I didn't realize how long I'd been crying until I noticed the sunset through the window. The house felt heavier now, full of ghosts. My entire life, every fight, every wound, every silence, suddenly made terrible, painful sense. She had been trying to ruin me. She had been trying to rewrite herself through me. 2 weeks later, she passed away. Peacefully, they said. David came to the funeral. He stood beside me the whole time, silent, shaking. When everyone else left, he whispered, "She told me once before the end that you saved her. That even when you hated her, you still came back. That's what love really is." And for the first time in my life, I believed him. After everything, I kept both of their letters. Sometimes I read them together, one after the other, her guilt and his forgiveness bleeding into each other like ink and water. I used to think betrayal was about lies, or love, or trust. Now I think it's about fear. The fear of being unlovable. The fear of trying again and failing worse than before. My mother lived and died inside that fear. And in the end, all I can do is make sure I don't. Some nights, I drive to the ocean, her favorite place. I bring a single lavender flower and leave it by the water, not because she deserves forgiveness, but because I finally understand her, and maybe that's enough.